All right, welcome back. We're going to have a real quick discussion about the history of the Selmer Mark 7 because it came from the Mark 6 line. And here's one of my Mark 7s, a later Mark 7. You can tell there's no engraving. And this was my first pro horn I bought. As you can see, it has Mark 7 on the front of the bell. And this horn was designed by really two people, Frederick Hemke, who was the music educator at Northwestern University's Vian School of Music, and also a French person who's I'm going to slaughter his name probably, Michel Nouaux, who was a soloist for the Republican Guard. And he also was a winner of the Concours International de Geneva in 1952. The early Mark 7s, which this is a late Mark 7, I have an early Mark 7, but I can only hold one, has an American engraved bell, which was continuation from the Mark 6. But around 270,000, 269,000 horns were shipped to the U.S. as a finished product with no engraving, and this is one of them. Mine is a 295, and some of them may have had either European engraving or none at all, such as this one. Also, a lot of these had all the neck straps. I have 3 generations or 4 generations of neck straps. They're actually on my wall of Ray Hyman neck straps. You'll see these brown ones, they're black ones, different white ones that the 7.6s came with. Also, one interesting thing, if you ever use these Fred Hemke reeds, which I did a lot in high school and such, still use them every so often. Of course, he was one of the designers of the 7. Now, Selmer USA's website has a lot more information about the 7, which I found very intriguing. We're going to take a look at that right now. So what we're looking at here is on the Selmer French website, the official website of Selmer Paris. We have history notes number 11 of the Mark 7. Has some interesting information on there, which we'll go about. There's a video, and I'll provide a link to the video. But here it talks about the transition between the Mark 6 and the Super Action 80, which was the Mark 7, which is only on the market for 4 years officially, from 76 to 1980. It says offered a powerful sound rich in high harmonics due to the advent of rock and pop music. Here, one of the experts, Douglas Pfeiffer, has a video, and I'll provide a link for it down below. But it really has the published list, tends to have the Mark 7 starting at 231,000 in the serial number. But apparently the first prototypes of the 7 started appearing around 195 in 1972, 3 years before production. And small test batches of production of at 205,000, 212, 206, and 219 with runs of 10, 20, and 30 instruments were done for a variety of reasons. One, testing out the production, testing out new tooling, and whatever. Now, the Mark 7 was a change in the way they manufacture the horns, and they're trying to automate more of the process to compete against Yamaha, who was really coming anew with their Model 61 and 62s. But apparently, most of those instruments were not sold until official production started, and they were held at the factory. And around 231,000, it says a lengthy test run of over 100 instruments was done, and then further ones at 232, 236. And they were all held back until full production came on. And it says the actual full production of the 7 happened around 240,000. And mine is 295,000. This is one of the later ones. I have an earlier one also. And it says only 15 examples of 1,000 instruments were sold prior to 1975. And they're only really sold after the official rollout happened. For altos, full production was up and running about 241,000. And ran to about 317,000 for total production of 35,000 Mark 7 altos. For tenors, it was a little bit earlier, started at 239,700 up to about 317,400. And it says there are some Mark 6s, as you see the serial numbers here, there's some Mark 6s after 240,000 that were dribbling out, and there's 246,000 Mark 6s you've seen. Basically says total production 20,000 for tenors. And I have one too, which is an earlier one with engraving also. And now here's some interesting information I never knew. Mark 7 baritones, sopranos. There are a few Mark 7 baritones and sopranos that are out there. It says essentially they're Mark 6s stamped and marketed as Mark 7s. So there's a few of them. It says there's less than 50 of each of them. And so it says for all intents and purposes, it really isn't a Mark 7 baritone because it's really a Mark 6, and no Mark 7 soprano because it's really a Mark 6. But there's less than 50 of them. So that's some really interesting information about the baritones and sopranos, that they're essentially Mark 6s. And as I mentioned before, I have a early Super Action 80 soprano, and if someone in Southeast Michigan has a 6, I would love to compare the two. If you do have a 6 in Southeast Michigan, try to contact me and we'll see if we can get together for a bit and compare the two. I'll even let you play my Super Action 80 soprano. Some other information here is we have Mark 7's improvements include a new octave key mechanism and functional placement of spatial group for left-hand figure, the big table keys basically. It says the key work was brought in to improve the handling of the instrument. The body of bell ring changed from a 2 to 3 point anchoring system. Plastic booster on the pads. The Super Action 80, I believe they went to metal boosters again. It says for rock and roll and pop music, richer and higher harmonics. One additional thing about the 7, the tenors were very variable. Some people said some were good for classical, some said they were good for rock and roll. And one of the major differences, which I'm going to have another episode about, is the diameter of the body octave pip. If this is drilled too big, the mouthpiece becomes, the instrument becomes really mouthpiece sensitive, where it likes a larger tip mouthpiece or a harder reed. And we're going to discuss that in another episode because I did experiments with that for saxophones, alto clarinets, bass clarinets, and you can really change the way a horn, the power of the horn easily by modifying this a little bit. But you gotta be really careful because just a tad bit too much and the horn just disintegrates. Anyways, that's for another episode. And that's really all the information I have about the Mark 7. If you like what you saw, please click like, subscribe, and share. Give us your comments about the 7, whether it did you good or not. Don't forget to give comments below what you think about your 7. Do you own a 7? What's the serial number? Is it engraved? Is it not engraved? How do you like it compared to other horns? So we'll see you next time.